Dear friends, we gather this morning to remember and to celebrate the life of one who filled our world with her love, her goodness, her extraordinary spirit, and outstanding example. In humility and gratitude, we turn to the wisdom of our tradition for comfort, for guidance, and for understanding. As we pray that perfect peace has descended upon our Lee, we pray simultaneously for the peace of our world. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Dear friends, if Lea Leyser were here this morning, she would be in her element, surrounded by the closest, dearest, and most beloved people in her life. She would embrace her book club friends and her card-playing friends. She would comment insightfully on the books they were reading and look forward to the next planned afternoon of Maj. She would be honored by colleagues and fellow teachers and would joyfully reminisce about her many years of teaching art in the Warrensville Heights school system, including all of the grades from kindergarten through 12th. She loved the students and had the creativity and resourcefulness to engage and interest them at their various levels. She also possessed such artistic talent and skill that her own work included everything from still lifes and painted landscapes to sketches on the beach in Florida. From abstract representation to studies in black and white to collages and three-dimensional creations, she was endlessly curious and inventive. She loved to create and she loved to share, which made her the ideal teacher, friend, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She always had a project, an activity, or an adventure planned which she would enjoy as much as the children. She never participated from the sidelines. She was always right in the middle of any experience. She had such energy and vitality, such vigor and enthusiasm. Even during her years of decline, there were times when Rhonda's presence seemingly released the powerful life force that always characterized her. she would come alive again with the dynamism of her personality, asking about all of her loved ones, hearing the news of every family member, laughing and talking and enjoying the sociability of being out, being aware, and being treated to lunch. If Lee were here, she would set the mode and the mood, the tone and the program. She had style, flair, beauty, within and without, an artistic touch in everything she did. She had that quality of making the everyday seem special, of bringing her passion and enthusiasm to every encounter and every interaction. She had an appreciation for imagination and inventiveness, creativity and resourcefulness. She was, after all, an artist, on canvas, on sketch paper, with materials of all kinds, in her home, with relationships. She was an artist of life. With all of her interests and activities, her teaching and her artistry, it was her family that was at the center of her sweeping landscape, her exquisite still life, which was rarely still. With her beloved groom, Walter, at her side, I vividly remember her at weddings, brisses, baby namings, consecrations, bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, confirmations, graduations, all of the occasions that marked her family's growth and strength, that allowed her and Walter to celebrate together their children's Jewish lives, the richness and diversity of their family's life, the profound privilege of seeing her grandchildren and then their great-grandchildren, her and Walter's great-grandchildren, continue their legacy. As Rhonda married Roger, Ron found his Emmy, Richard married Glow, and they all created beautiful families of their own. Lee's embrace extended to her nieces and nephews, all of her siblings, and had been nurtured, of course, by her parents, Harvey and Frida Fronston. She was an artist of life, whose special medium was that of relationships. She would have known and understood the words of the psalmist when he said, "How good it is when we dwell together in memory and caring, love and compassion, and how good it is when we can sing in tribute to one whose legacy of beauty will inspire and uplift us to be artists of our own lives." Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of these psalms, first shared by Cantor Sager, these prayers, thus linking Lee's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. I invite you now to join with me in the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths through his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Lea was an Anshe Chesed, a woman of valor, her worth far beyond rubies. Her husband, Walter, always put his confidence in her, and he lacked no good thing. Lea was good to him all the days of her life. She opened her hand to the needy. She extended it to the poor. She was clothed with strength and splendor. She looked to the future cheerfully. She opened her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue was guided by kindness. She oversaw the activities of her household. She never ate the bread of idleness. Her children, Rhonda, Ron, and Rick, they come forward today. They bless her. They honor her. Walter praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. As we approach Passover, there is a tradition of which many are familiar, the welcoming of Elijah the prophet. Unlike other prophets, Elijah was unique, the only prophet whose death is not recorded. And as such, Elijah is invited to Judaism's most sacred moments. The Seder table, as we know. We pour this extra cup of wine. This time-honored tradition reminds us there's some parts of life that cannot be relegated to history, and that we should always keep a door open to usher in hope and memory. So today we open the door of memory to a woman who made our cup overflow with her beautiful soul, her warm personality, her classy sense of style, her generosity of spirit, her joy of life. Like we do when we welcome Elijah, we will open the door to an outpouring of memories to our dear Lea. I know her husband Walter wants to share a few words.
Thanks. Rabbi Caruso, Cantor Sager, friends and family. We're here to remember Lea. We were married for 68 years. in front of Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver, who told us to take care of each other until we depart in life. Well, it happened. We had a great run, except for the last 4 years. When Lee was in her early years, she didn't have an easy life. She lost a younger brother when she was 3 years old. Her mother was in a body cast for a year. Her younger sister had polio. Then their house burned down. That all happened before I came into the picture. When people ask me, what was she like? Well, in reading some of the memos, the preponderance of them said she was like an angel. The room lit up when she came into the room. She was always smiling. And I must tell you, she never complained in the last 4 years. As I said before, we had a good run. We had the best of two worlds. And we saw a good part of the world. We did a lot of traveling. We took the family wherever we could. And we had a good time. So that's my little story. Okay?
We know how important it was for Walter to be here today. And we're so glad that we were able to make this date, to make sure, Walter, you were able to recover well, enough to stand here and honor your wife. Thank you. I know Rhonda and Rick are going to share a few words. Rhonda, why don't you come up first?
I know many people might say this about their mothers, but I had a unique and very special relationship with mine. We were more than mother and daughter. We were best friends, always planning time to be with each other. My mother had 2 lives, one before Alzheimer's disease and one before. The disease began to take my mother's mind from her. There were so many stories of the times I shared with my mother. Today I'm just going to share a few. The first one happened in the time before her life with Alzheimer's. I was probably 13 years old at the time my mother and I were driving down Mayfield Road. She had a light blue convertible at the time and the top was down. She was wearing a scarf on her head and big sunglasses, and was using a big, not so big, brightly colored pink pipe. You see, she was trying to quit her cigarettes. She looked gorgeous. She decided to take this time with me to tell me about the birds and the bees. Well, every car we passed did a double take, looking at our car. Every light we stopped at, they stared at our car. It seemed that all eyes were on us, glued to our car alone. I began protesting, assuming that every car was looking at us because they heard the conversation. I said, I know everything, over and over again, hoping the discourse would stop. I really didn't know, but all those staring eyes were really beginning to haunt me. Well, she finally stopped. Much later on, I realized that they couldn't hear anything that she was saying. They were looking at this beautiful woman and curious about that pink pipe. My mother had Alzheimer's for the last 4 years, as my father told you. Of course, we were all devastated, but we kept on with our lives. I would try to have lunches with my mom at least once a week. It was something that we really both enjoyed. Also, I thought it would give my dad some time for himself so that he could do something that maybe he enjoyed. These lunches were very special for me. They were just times for the two of us to spend together. Sometimes during these lunches, something would happen that was very, very different and very unique. We always started talking about the family, what was going on, what we were doing, what the grandchildren were doing, how they were doing, etc. I would talk about the latest play I had seen and Roger had seen, and we laughed and we told stories. And then, sometimes, if I was lucky, all of a sudden there was a glint in her eye. And something would click and something would change. And her questions became deeper. And she would start giving me advice. And she'd really start to laugh, not a little laugh, but a real laugh. And the lunch changed, and it turned, and I had my mother back. It was really, really unique. I had my mother back that lunch. And it didn't happen all the time. It happened once in a while. And every lunch I would say, oh, I wonder if it would happen. I wonder if it'll happen. And it happened enough that I relished those lunches. And it was really like giving me such a gift. And I don't know why it happened, but it happened. And she was my mother again. And after lunch was over, and after our talking and our laughing and our giggling, she would get tired. And especially on those days, and all of a sudden, that glint would go, and I would say, are you ready to go now? And she said, yes. And I said, do you feel like ice cream? And the answer was always yes. And we'd be off to Mitchell's for her favorite thing, ice cream. And she'd always pick a different flavor. She couldn't read the board because of her macular degeneration, so I'd read a few that I knew that she might like, and she always picked a different one. And she'd finish her ice cream, and I'd say to her, should we bring some for Dad? And she'd say no with a sneaky little smile. And we'd go home to Dad. My mom was a very special person. She made other people feel liked, important, loved, and smart. She was full of love, and it showed through her cooking, her artwork. It reflected through the light in her eyes to you. She was nurturing and sincere, making you feel as if you were the only person in the world. while texting to one of my closest friends who happened to visit my mother at least once a week. Usually she was there 2 or 3 times. She said of my mother that the light in her eyes and the love in her heart shines on all those who she touched. We are all better individuals for having loved her. Thank you.
It's a challenge looking through the binoculars here, just not being able to see everybody. All righty. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for coming to the celebration of life for my mother. As those who have gone through this before, I now know the deep loss that you have felt. It's not fun. Talking about Mom for only 2 minutes is impossible. Here are some memories and images in my mind. I will always remember the way she looked at me, always loving me. She always was in style, wearing some capri pants, plaid top, and her big sunglasses, and that smile, her best accessory. Mom was there, Dad was on the road providing for us. When I could not sleep, I'd sit next to Mom on the couch. We would snack, make faces, and laugh until I got sleepy. She would take me fishing at the Dew Reservoir. I remember Sparky, our dog, would lick her feet to wake her up in the morning. Everyone knows Mom was an artist and that she loved teaching. We did all forms of art together, drawing, painting, sculpting, clay figures out of Play-Doh that we made together. She helped me paint my bedroom, the Dark Side of the Moon album for Pink Floyd. It was all black with the white light going into a prism and the colors coming back out and then the prism going back to the white light. My mom did that for me. Family trips, summers on Pelee Island, Florida with Herbert, camping across the United States. If we were feeling sick on this trip, Mom would say, just take a nap, you're tired. The family cruise to the Bahamas, the Israel trip, wow, the memories are the most spectacular. My mom and dad gave us the best opportunity to learn. They exposed us to the world, and we are better people for it. Mom's cooking was great. Sorry about this. The bacon-wrapped tenderloin with the sour cream sauce over the oven-roasted potatoes was outstanding, and they had a little more trafe to the meal here. We had her parsley, garlic, cream sauce, spinach, shrimp over rice. I still make these recipes, and Brittany does now. When they were in Florida, I would visit them. She would never let go of me, holding my hand, staring at me as if she was painting a canvas in her mind of me, always showing her love. She always gave me the latitude to be my own self, but she never let me get away with too much. Before she would help me figure things out and took care of me like only a mother can. Dad's email address is sculptwalt@aol.com. That's because he's into sculpting, and he's Walter. Mom, I told her she needed to do an email address, and she thought, like Dad, she was going to use her name and what her hobby was, so her email address was leafart, leafart@aol.com. We laughed, she peed. Even at the end, she was the ultimate mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and friend to many people here. When we would visit her, any of you visited her, she would pep up, talk, laugh, and ask how they were, and show genuine interest. She was my mom, and she was my friend. Things my mother used to say, just a very short list. You're tired, take a nap. Sleep tight and wake up tomorrow nice and bright. Marvelous. Actually, it was marvelous. Really much better than that. I can't do it. One of her other lines she would say as she got into the Alzheimer's situations, unfortunately, was, what else? Easy way to cover up what was happening. I love you oodles and oodles. This is one she said to Ronnie, Rhonda, and I. Enough. Kiss, hug, and make up, you two. Another one of her lines was, sounds good to me. terrific. And happy birthday. I'm going to miss that the most. She would also say Happy New Year, and I'm sure that the next year is going to be better than the past. Thank you.
Granddaughter Brittany was going to say a few words too.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate really the life of such a wonderful lady. We're talking about someone who's probably the best grandma ever. Sorry to all the other grandmas in here, grandmas to be, grandmas that were. She was just top-notch, as she would say. She was the life and love of the party, and I bet she would be having a hand on her hip right now, looking at all of us and being like, yeah, sure, have a celebration when I'm not around, okay. Always joking, always teasing, but always loving. Times with her were often spent in nature and very creative, elaborate scavenger hunt. I'm talking checklist, bags, envelopes, magnifying glasses, everything you need for the best time ever. We would always talk about art and always make art with all the grandkids, I'm sure you remember that. All the whimsical art with nature, with leaves, with really everything. She nurtured our abilities to be confident and creative, but also emphasized on remaining humble through your fervor. All of us grandkids can remember her adorable and personalized books, making up stories for us and about us. All while making sure our bellies are full, to eat dessert first, of course, and making silly faces while we l'chaim with a nice little couple fingers of scotch. I have been missing her wonderful, accepting, warm heart, even though she was always so cold. We always found something to giggle about to the point of tears and aching cheeks from smiling so hard. I will never forget all the memorable moments and hope to one day be just as incredible of a wife, mother, grandmother, and friend as she was to the rest of us, even until the very end. Thank you.
Let's open the door. Let the memories come in again. Yeah. Just as we welcome Eliyahu Hanavi, we let those memories flow. These doors and these windows where memories travel. Well, Lee moved through them herself beautifully, and sometimes even confronting adversity. The fact that she grew up and had a very tough life, with her sister Grace having polio and her mother in a body cast for 2 years. Yes, Leah F., those were the Fronston days. And so it put a lot of pressure on her. And the memory of her family home on Chagrin Boulevard burning down and losing everything during those times, she just kept moving forward, kept moving. She was the only Jew in her Orange High School class in 1949. Nothing deterred her from being unique, different, wanting to shine. And sometimes the door opened and Lee could see the future and happiness, like the time she met Walter. Park Synagogue, YPC event, Walter meets up with his friend. They saw 3 girls. Walter was told the one in the middle is yours. That was it. But he didn't need to be told who to date, because that one in the middle, she was meant for him from the very beginning. Walter tells it that he proposed that night. the boy from 128th Street and Buckeye found the most perfect girl from Chagrin Falls. Their love carried them to great heights in far-off lands like Japan and Petra and Cambodia, Australia. Walter, you and Lee even volunteered in Israel. They liked to entertain. All the kids' friends liked to hang out at the Leyser home. And Lee was the driver of their social world. She was the hit of the party. Like a magnet, people just seemed to congregate around her. She was known for hosting at her home according to specific themes sometimes those parties had, adding flair. Her tastes were eclectic, but everything seemed to blend together beautifully. Indeed, it seemed like her creative expression knew no bounds. She was always in fashion, stylish, and always tasteful. She grew her artistic talents in college at Kent State and Cleveland State, where she studied art and taught in the Warrensville Heights public schools. She worked with oil paints, the potter's wheel and kiln, and just about anything that would transform the mundane into something beautiful. Ultimately, though, Lee's expression was indicative, that artistic expression was indicative of the splendor inside of her heart. She met life with an upbeat, positive outlook, and every interaction was filled with gifts to give. She treated everyone as an equal, greeted you with a smile on her face. Even in the most challenging of circumstances, she could make lemonade out of lemons, as her children told me. When you needed guidance, she would give you just the right advice and do whatever needed to be done according to the circumstance. Uncle Irv, basically another brother. He shared, "When I first met Lee, Rhonda was an adorable 3-year-old. Ronnie was an impish toddler. I will never forget that day. Lee was an extremely attractive, spirited 24-year-old. We bonded immediately. She was Grace's bridesmaid at our wedding. Those early years were full of fun and excitement. Ricky came along in 1958. When Lee, Walter, and the 3 R's moved back to University Heights, we had also moved there. Seemed as though we were at one another's home constantly. We then moved to the house on Meadowbrook. Lee was the #1 schlepper. Carload after carload of what have you. It seemed endless, but Lee trudged on. Holidays were always spent together." Irv writes and continues, "In 1976, my life fell apart. Lee and Walter never left my side. They were so supportive, so helpful and loving. How can anyone not love the people that are there for you in their darkest moments? Although my life had changed so much, we still kept in contact. Lee became my confidant, the person I sought out for wisdom. Her opinions were very important to me, and I listened to her advice. She was to be trusted. Then in 1986, before Gail entered my life, when I was in fact building the home as a bachelor, my neighbors, Lee and Walter, were there almost as much as I was. I'd be working on the house, and all of a sudden a car pulled up in the driveway, and no doubt you can guess who was in it. Lee and Walter. Lee helped me decorate the place, running around looking at stuff for the house. She was a crutch, encouraging me to buy this item and discouraging me to buy that item, all the time with fun and laughter. In 1988, I met Gail, and we were invited to break fast for Yom Kippur. Irv had quite a memory. We knew each other 2 months, but I was anxious to introduce Gail to the Leyser family for obvious reasons. The whole family was there to meet my hopeful future bride. I will never forget Ricky telling Lee how wonderful her matzo balls were, and Glow's moms were totally different. Of course, Ricky preferred Lee's. Gail and I got married in 1989. Yup, they were there. So as you can see, for the past 61 and a half years, The Leyser family has been a big part of my life. I have no regrets. I truly love each and every one of you. Irv concludes, I now have an empty spot in my heart, a wet Kleenex in my hand. Rest in peace, dear Leah. Dear Lee, I love you. Irv. Lee always let you be you, made you feel like you were perfectly special. She relished her role as a grandma, and after her retirement took every opportunity to be around them, even writing books for them. Some comments. Tess shared the following. Grandma Lee was always so warm, optimistic, supportive, and a great listener. She shared her creativity with us, making handmade books or paper dolls that we could dress in a variety of paper outfits. Her and Grandpa would pick Britt, Kara, and I up for a surprise adventure which ended in sleepovers at her house, where we would make pottery in her basement, play outside, go in the hot tub with her, borrowing her bathing suits, and then in the morning she would make us farina or butterfly French toast. We also had tea parties with Pat Friedman and her granddaughters. Everyone loved visiting her and Grandpa in Florida, going on walks, swimming in the pool and ocean, using the sauna, always having dessert. Oh yes, she loved those sweets, ice cream or berries with sugar on them. Her and Grandpa would come back from their trips and all over the world with gifts for all their children and grandchildren. Now, Tess says, I remember her letters, phone calls, and our conversations about her latest travel. Books read or movies seen, but most of all, how she always shared how proud she was of me. The truth is, she was always so fair. To think she gave the same support and love for Scott, for Kim, Britt, Kara. That's amazing to me. She truly was the most involved, genuine, and special grandma. We are sad she is no longer with us at family events or in everyday life, but we are really the luckiest to have had her. Kara shared the following. Everyone says that my grandmother was such a sweet lady, and this is true. She was really very, very sweet all the way to her core. It is a little thing she did and said that I will always remember. She always had positive things to say about us kids, and she always was uplifting and supportive no matter what. She was fun and adventurous. She would tell us about her travels with Grandpa. She would plan surprise adventures for us, doing projects, crafts, and games. She would make elaborate nature scavenger hunts, and she always gave us hugs, squeezes, and kisses. She loved taking us back to school shopping, to the movies, to museums. And she and Grandpa would offer us midnight snacks. And guess what? Always ice cream in the freezer. She made us that cinnamon toast. That seemed to be a big hit. And taught us how to paint, draw, and make pottery. She made those handmade books featuring our adventures in their condo in Florida. She also talked about how great we were. Those books had her own illustrations, and even animal characters she named. She always told us funny stories about our parents, aunts, and uncles. She wasn't afraid to admit of laughing so hard she had an accident. She was smart, creative, funny, loving, warm. Even when she was in the hospital and hospice, she loved snuggling our hands and faces. She told the nurses she loved them. She kept her sense of humor. One recent visit, she told me she was so proud of the work I was doing. And even though her memory wasn't the same, I believed her. I knew and felt she was truly proud in that moment. I see my grandmother and my father all the time. It gives me hope. Hope that we will all carry bits of her character and values with us. Kara. Lee was Walter's best friend, too, and their love only grew throughout the years. Just last week, when I sat with you, Walter, these were your words. My wife was beautiful, and as she aged, she blossomed. Even in recent days with both Lee and Walter infirm, Rhonda, Ron, and Rick would try to make it possible for their parents to connect. This, I saw through these last weeks, was truly a Kiddush Hashem, an incredible sanctification of God, of kibud avaim, of honoring your parents, going to great lengths, gathering at hospitals and nursing homes, constant conversations, logistics, trying to put it all together, trying to do what was right, trying to find time for your parents to be together. As imperfect as it was, just trying to find those moments. Truly a Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name. You brought them together. Last time meeting, both of them in wheelchairs. But Walter remembers, more than 6 decades after they had met, feeling like it was the first night they met, all those years ago. Walter, at that moment, each of you looking at each other, you said she looked beautiful all over again. For Walter, Lee was truly the inspiration for his life, the person who made it possible for him to pursue and achieve both his professional and personal dreams. And he will be the first one to admit that. She was the one who put food on the table, paid the mortgage, when you were just getting started in your business. She was the driver of dreams, and she did it all with grace and aplomb. But these past years were challenging for her, and while she never looked to complain, it was clear that her infirmities took their toll. Rhonda, you talked about looking for those glimpses of normalness and just holding on to them so tight. Don't we all want to do that? We see a loved one aging, becoming more infirm, and we know we're losing them. We want to just hold on so tight. Little glimpses. Little glimpses. These memories come flowing back and forth through doors and windows. One of the memories that you shared with me, Rhonda, was the memory of the shell box that you made. You collect the shells, the kids. Inside you would place the various treasures found along the beach. Perhaps that's what we all need to carry with us, is this little treasure box. As the memories flow back, we can place those memories in that box. It just keep it along with us. We just carry it. We open the box, and it makes it come alive again. Everything. She's here again. Those memories are stored and not lost, forever to be opened again and again. The box of treasures. So this year, when you get up from the table and open up for Eliyahu Hanavi, let the memories flow in again. Let them keep flowing through. May we all produce a life's work that is worthy of blessing, that is worthy of the life that Lee lived. Zichrona livracha. May her memory forever be a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Let us pause for a moment as we consider Lee's amazing, long life. If you are able, we invite you now to please rise for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer.
Malei Rachamim, Shochei Mamromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Oteharim, Kizarakia Masirim Et Nishmat Lea Bat Chaim Ufreda Shalcha Leolama Barachamim Yastireha besete knafav leolamim Yitzro achayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, Eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Lea F. Leyser, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
As we turn to the conclusion of our service, we'd like to acknowledge those who are survivors, those who are here rememberers, her dear children, Rhonda, Ron, and Rick, and their ever-supportive spouses, Roger, Emmy, and Glo. She was a loving grandmother to Scott and Alana, Kimberly and Josh, Tess and now Justin, Karen, Ryan, and Brittany. A cherished great-grandmother of Noah and Jacob and Nate and Asher and Avi and Kilo, Zachary and Kelsey. And dear sister of the deceased, Miriam and Walter and Morton and Grace, but survived by her brother Charles in Germany. And of course, by her brother of choice, Irv Bishko, and a cherished aunt of so many nieces and nephews. We are going to move from this space to the interment, and then following The family will sit until 5 p.m. tonight at Rhonda and Roger's home, 26403 Albert Lane in Beechwood, 26403 Albert Lane in Beechwood. That'll be following trip to the cemetery, correct? And then till 5 p.m. tonight. Contributions are suggested to the Alzheimer's Association or the American Macular Degeneration Foundation. Thank you.
And then for the family, I'm going to hand you to turn into the study for a moment and gather your things together.